control gun sales, and what specific programs would you vote to fund to address gang violence?
I think, frankly, after the tragedies that this country has suffered with gun violence, it seems as if our country is finally able to have a responsible and honest debate about what we should do to stanch gun violence in this country. I think it's very frustrating for me to be able to again see politics being injected into the equation. And the reality is, we had an opportunity to be able to pass legislation and focus on common sense reform. What I am in support of is federal funding for states to be able to implement background checks, again, through the FBI. Now, this is not something that's controversial. This is not something that goes against whether you're a Republican or Democrat. This should be completely common sense, pragmatic solutions that we're applying. In fact, Wayne LaPierre, as the head of the NRA, was initially in favor of federal funding for states to be able to implement these background checks. Of course, later on, he reneged on that, but initially he was in favor of the idea. And in New Jersey, you had the entire congressional delegation, minus one, who was in favor of federal funding for states to implement background checks. So I'm sure I don't have to let you, I can allow you guys to venture a guess as to who that one individual was, but he's not here tonight. But the reality is, I guess, we have to really focus on common sense gun legislation. Now, again, I'm not a constitutional scholar by any stretch of the imagination. I took constitutional law 1 and 2, I'm sure as Scott Garrett did in law school. But the reality is I'm not a constitutional expert, but I do understand the importance of the Second Amendment. So no one is trying to take your guns away from you, and if you're a law-abiding citizen who's entitled to be able to have guns, then we should focus on allowing you to do so. At the same time, I think having background checks for people who have mental health issues and also who have criminal records, these background checks, again, is common sense stuff that both Democrats and Republicans can agree on. But right now you have lobbying special interests who have now taken control of the U.S. government and prevent members of Congress from actually taking real leadership. Not even leadership, but just very basic pragmatic leadership that, again, should put political party aside. So I think this all kind of goes back to the reality that all these issues are interconnected. Gun violence is also tied to gang violence. Where does gang violence stem from? Gang violence stems from a lack of opportunity. The socioeconomic gap that exists in urban centers, this is a reality that leads to gang violence, that leads to gang culture. I think from our federal perspective, what we have to make sure that we do is respect the Second Amendment, but also recognize that this is not a controversial thing to be able to implement background checks. So what I support at the federal level is federal funding for the FBI to be able to allow states to implement background checks for people with mental health issues, as well as for people who have criminal histories.